Welcome back to the Beyond the Scope podcast presented by NDMD Productions. I am your host, Andy, senior year med student, and here we continue the mission of sharing impactful stories from students, residents, and attendings of different medical professions while giving you an inside look into their lives, not just as healthcare workers, but the incredible people they are as well. But also this is all about the things all those years of medical training doesn't prepare you for, things that are beyond the scope of our practice. So with that being said, let's introduce today's guests. And not too sure when this episode is going to release, but at least at the time of me recording this, I've just completed 3 months of dedicated studying for USMLE Step 1, Step 2 CK, as well as all my shelves. So I apologize if my brain's a little bit slower than usual. But, you know, with all that studying, I would like to think I know a thing or two about studying, but these guys got the formula down pat. So since medical school, these two brothers have studied, trialed, and dare I say, and use the term, mastered the art and process of learning. YouTube has without a doubt become one of the biggest free resources to learn anything, and these two have truly stretched the potential of education outreach using that platform. Nearing 3/4 of a way to 1 million subscribers and probably getting there very, very soon. 45 million views on YouTube. Their beautifully produced instructional videos easily walks you through how to learn fundamental study skills, effective time management, self-improvement, and so much more. I mean, literally, they have a course on music theory. It's insane. And I've been following you guys for a while, and I know technically the channel isn't too old, starting in like 2019. But I honestly consider you guys one of the major pioneers for medical students on YouTube, and have set such a high bar for the impact, or for how to impact the lives of students all around the world outside the clinical setting. And with that being said, join me in welcoming the masterminds and lead educators behind the Cajun Koi Academy, Dr. Mike and Matty. How are you guys?
Thanks, man.
Wow. We are doing amazing.
That was the most beautiful introduction I've ever had.
Laughing the entire time there.
No one has ever. Yeah, that's crazy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Let's go.
Happy to be here. Yeah, definitely.
Dude, thank you so much for your time. It's really an honor and privilege to talk with you guys. Again, I have looked up to the videos that you made and have so much respect for what you guys have built over the past couple years. And so before we dive into the origins of your channel and kind of the evolution of your passion for teaching, I'm happy to see y'all smiles. I pride myself in making decent intros for my guests, but I also know for a fact you guys have done way much more than I can even say. So is there anything else the people should know that I may have left out?
I guess throughout our conversation, if it comes up, we'll let you know. But yeah, I think what
I mean, you nailed it, man. I was like,
what you gave was more than sufficient.
So just like briefly introduce you guys, where you're from, kind of like where medicine has taken you, and kind of where you are now with Cajun Koi.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll let the big bro start.
Yeah. So I'm Mike, and this is Matty.
What's up?
Big bro, little bro. We have a sister kind of in the middle of us too. We don't really talk about her as much, but we try to get her on the channel more. It's more for her. But yeah, we started this in 2019. I think at the time I was in residency and Matty was in med school. We are from Orange County, California. It's kind of funny. We went to the exact same high school.
Yeah, we're actually kind of the same person, which is funny.
And med school.
I went to the same high school as Mike. I went to the same college as Mike, and then I went to the same med school as Mike. So it's like a weird following of his footsteps up until we are now.
But unintentional, I think.
Kind of unintentional. Yeah, okay, it's unintentional, not intentional. And then he kind of dragged me a little bit into this content creation business. So I guess I could talk a little bit about like where or why we started our journey on YouTube at all. I feel like that's going to be one of the questions you're going to get to. Anyways, so it was an interesting time. We started YouTube right around when pandemic hit, right around the origins of COVID, end of 2019. And that was a really, really serendipitous time for me as a med student. I had just finished step 1. And there's that break in med school in the US where like you are about to start your clinical rotations, and then this pandemic thing happened. And basically what happened from that point on was we were all sent home, like for a few months, we all had a lockdown and all that stuff. And I went to med school on the East Coast. We went to med school at VCU in Virginia. And so for like 3 months, I just went home and I was like, well, this is weird. Like I've just been grinding and studying, and now I'm just at home for a few months. And we had always been talking for a long time about like just starting some kind of creative outlet. We never thought it was going to be YouTube. I've always just wanted to make music. I'm like a born and raised musician. I've been playing piano since I was like 5. So is Mike. And we've like been trying to like do like this like musician thing forever. And somehow we ended up starting to make videos. And I was like, from my end, I was like, I just wanted to make music videos. Like I just wanted to make music and make music videos. Mike was like, as a resident, he was trying to teach his patients about medical topics. And I was like, hey, I can just make the music for your videos. And that was like the very beginning of it. And it just really exploded from there into a lot of these different passions that we really discovered through making content, which was our love for teaching. And that's kind of where it all came from.
Yeah, I guess if you want a little extra trivia, our very first use of Cajun Koi was our stage name on Spotify.
That's true. Cajun Koi on Spotify came before the YouTube migration, the brand migration. Yeah.
So then for me, I was in residency when we started, and I found myself just repeating a lot of information for patient education, especially teaching patients about what is blood pressure, what is diabetes, how to manage it. And I just found that the patients who improved the fastest were the ones that really understood what I was teaching. And oftentimes it takes repetition for them to grasp the concepts. And so I started recording myself and sharing the videos with them so they can watch it over and over as many times as they wanted to at home. And those were some of the very first trial videos that we had on a channel outside of the Mike and Matty channel. So then after that, I was like, oh, there's something here. This could help the productivity of being doctors and having an outlet to create things. So from there, we started making videos about health. Our very first video on the channel, I think, was about Asian glow, right? Kind of cringe, but it was about like how alcohol affects the body. And we're like, yeah, maybe we'll try to target some Asian demographics and see if they relate to what we're talking about. So we made videos about the health side of how alcohol affects us. And then from there, we branched out into stuff like blood pressure devices, supplements. And then we started to really get into the stuff that we loved, which was self-improvement, productivity, education, learning, that sort of stuff. And it just took off from there. When we really started to make content that we loved, I think the audience started to notice that. And they started to see like, oh, these guys are passionate about what they're talking about. Because we've gotten that feedback a lot. More so talking about self-improvement than talking about the health or medical devices or supplements. So once we narrowed down on what the audience was looking for, then we just did more of what was working.
Gotcha. And I know that's a big part of kind of the strategy to grow on YouTube is kind of finding that niche audience. And I think you guys have been very blessed that the niche is, I guess, fairly broad. You know, self-improvement is everywhere on YouTube. And I think people who Ali Abdaal like comes to mind. There's the guy who lives in France that speaks like in 16 languages or something like that. I think I don't know.
Is it Nathaniel Drew?
Probably.
Yes. Yeah. Nathaniel Drew.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of those. Yeah.
Where it's such an inviting theme on YouTube because, like I mentioned in the introduction, like it has become such a easily accessible way to learn anything and then also get inspired. So obviously, before you guys started making videos, I'm sure you've been consumers on the platform of content as well. Your production quality has been incredible since the first couple videos. Did you guys have any specific inspirations you drew from when you were designing how to make those videos?
Oh man. So when Matty mentioned that we were musicians and we started playing instruments when we were young, we were also, well, I get, for me at least, I think you were a little bit too. We were also into videography, video editing. I spent so many hours in high school. My best friends were all into video editing and making movies, and some of them went off to film school and stuff, whereas I took a different path. But my love for making videos goes way back to childhood. So I'd already had a lot of inspirations from the mainstream, like, Spielberg or Michael Bay or Tarantino or those guys. But then when I went onto YouTube, I saw that it was a very different game. It's more personable. It's less flashy. So at that time, I was watching a lot of Casey Neistat, Peter McKinnon, Daniel Schiffer. There was a bunch of them that I was watching. Some of the names slip my mind, but yeah, those are the channels I was following initially.
So all the skills that you guys have behind the camera is self-taught as well?
Yeah, self-taught. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a lot of trial and error. Yeah, self-taught.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the journey of most YouTubers, is it not? I mean, I don't know. You can speak from your experience of like where you learned all of these things too. But for us, yeah, I think trial and error is just something that YouTube really celebrates.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head because like all the names that you're throwing out are a lot of the same names that I would
Nice.
I would respond to that question with. They're very much the pioneers of making the everyday look extraordinary. And of course, if you're going towards more lifestyle stuff, vlog stuff, those are your guys. But even the more set up, orchestrated videos, especially when you're trying to deliver a potentially complex message in a very simple format, as any sort of medical education stuff, as well as I think a lot of the intricacies of how to learn well. Having that production quality is also fantastic. I think there's always this misconception that you need to have like the fanciest gear, the fanciest lighting, best audio equipment, etc. But at the end of the day, if you know how to tell a good story throughout your videos, that's really what matters the most.
Yeah, I think that's actually really all it comes down to, is being able to convey a message clearly. It really doesn't matter about any of the other stuff you said, like the cinematography, the audio, or, what visuals you show. It's really just, and I think like that in itself was where there was a lot of overlap in medical training. Because, as a soon to be physician yourself, like our job as doctors is really to teach. Like that's all we do in the hospital. We teach patients, we teach other doctors about what we know. So that skill of like being able to communicate effectively translated so well, in my opinion, like from making videos.
Teaching in the form of a story, I think. Those are skills that we took from our medical training too, I would say. Like being doctors has really helped us work on the skill of teaching and storytelling combined. Like all the practice problems are vignettes for a reason. It just sticks so much better. And it makes so much more sense to the patients too.
Yeah, and it's funny. That was one of the questions I was going to ask. Like, how do you think that the medical training process helped you make better videos and vice versa? Because I think a good analogy for me, obviously coming fresh off of like the core year of clinicals, was making videos made me a better presenter on rounds. Because I know you can try to teach this very rigid format of how to present, but at the end of the day, if you think about it like a story, you have your setting, your characters, your rising action, climax, resolution. It's very analogous to what's the patient name, age, past medical history, and then coming in, what they come in for, what have we done, climax, what are we probably going to do today, resolution, things to look out for, when are we looking to discharge this person. It's the same sort of thing that makes communicating very easy. That it translates very well to medicine and YouTube, and that's why I love talking about about this. I think there's more overlap than a lot of I would say older doctors would think, even though I think now they're starting to really see the value in being on YouTube as well. I don't know how you guys have interacted with maybe older physicians and seeing your work?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to add to, you're right in that being a doctor and the skills translate to YouTube, but I look at it more of like a cycle. Like it's a two-way street. You know, what we do on YouTube also helps you become a better doctor too. Like one example would be when you're making videos and you're starting off and you have no idea what you're talking about, you get all these comments that ask you to clarify things. Like what you explained in the first part didn't make sense. Can you clarify that? And you have to like start a conversation in the comments, you know? And over time you learn how to explain things more simply, and you learn how to leave out information that's just unnecessary. And then as I was growing on YouTube, it helped me teach my patients in the hospital much better too. Like I started to notice, oh, I don't actually need to say this. It's redundant. And then you have to make sure that the patient can repeat to you what you're trying to teach them. That's the comment section, you know, in the hospital is the patients giving you the feedback too. So it's like what you're learning from YouTube and from the hospital, they feed into each other, which is what really helped us sustain both, I think.
You and I must have different comment sections.
I was like, I've never thought about it that way, but I guess that's
what
a
I
good analogy. Yeah.
That's what I noticed a lot.
Like, I mean, that definitely makes sense. And I don't publicize a lot of my more pure educational videos. A lot of them are unlisted because I've done them for different departments at my med school as supplemental things on like certain research projects I've submitted. So like, I guess my content's a little different. I think I err on the edge, which also this sparks a conversation that I really want to have with you guys as far as like learning techniques, literature-based, how much of it is literature-based and how much is experience-based. Because I think for me, my goal when starting out on YouTube, knowing that I'm a medical student, knowing that I have a lot of eyes on me, a lot of people that may see this before I even had like 10 subscribers. I made sure to keep storytelling at the core of my content, where there's no right or wrong. It is just simply your experience. Because like that's what you experienced. Those are the lessons that you learned, and nobody can really take that away from you. That's why I love starting and continuing the 73 question interview series with all the different physicians, because it's bringing a very personal level to these people that I think society and especially pre-meds and medical students hold to a very high standard. So, you know, taking the camera and the mics behind those closed doors, quite literally into their own living rooms, and being like, oh, wow, this is like a normal person that went through, you know, their trials, their tribulations. This isn't some set up, stiff collar, professional interview. Podcasts are an excellent example of that as well. And even though I do want to do more educational stuff, I think it takes a lot more work. And I know you guys put in a ton of research into the videos that you do. So I want to know, like, how much work goes behind the scenes to make sure that what you guys are saying is backed up?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think what the approach that Mike and I have taken in all of our content very much aligns with what you said, where we take the approach that we're guides, we're not gurus. You know, we don't claim to know everything about everything regarding all the science, all the nuances and things like that. Because if you look at, you know, the literature, there is just so much of it. And at the end of the day, even when you think about science, it's still interpretations of data. So really, like, just being a guide is, we interpret it this way, and this is the conclusion that we draw from it. But at the end of the day, we always throw it back, and we're just like, you guys always have to do your own research too. Understand that this is just our interpretation. And if it helps you to explore it further, then, you know, I think we did our job fairly well to get someone to take that next step of like, oh, I'm actually going to learn more about whatever, you know, field of academia that they want to get to. But taking that approach of like being a guide, not a guru, has been pretty much like the overall philosophy of how we tell stories. It's really based on experience.
We do put a lot of work into it, though.
Not
Like,
discounting that part.
we are up here reading, articles, books, large databases. We're mind mapping everything. We're mind mapping this technique to that technique. We're mind mapping frameworks and systems. We have a number of coaches also helping us develop our frameworks and develop our products. Always keeping in mind that there is a starting point for everyone who joins us, and there is a result and an outcome that we want to help them transform into. So there's a lot of literature that we have to kind of swim through, but we have to figure out what we want to use for each person. Each person is very different. They need a different plan. And so it's the same thing with med school, like that you spend the first 2 years sitting in a lecture hall and they just fire hydrant you with all this info, right? But then when you go into the hospital and you actually put a person's name to the disease, this John Smith has these symptoms, then that's when it actually sticks. And then you learn through the experiential learning. So it's the same thing here. It's like we have all this literature, and it's part of our mission to make all this literature as simple as possible. We can put it on our YouTube channel for free so that anyone can access it. But as we always say, the knowledge is the first step, right? The first 2 years of med school is just the first step. You're just getting the information, but actually applying that information to your life and then transforming yourself, making a change in your life with the information. That's the hard part. And so you need the information, but you also need to learn through teaching. I think that's what helped us grow, is that we, in the act of teaching students, we were able to learn ourselves. So it requires that entire cycle. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's the classic, like, see one, do one, teach one
Exactly.
mantra that comes back around all the time in medicine. And I definitely will say there's a pretty fine line that you have to tiptoe on when you're doing educational content. Is I think you can do it very well and then just as easily do it very, very wrong. I think some of the examples that come to my mind are, a lot of people will tout their method as like the only method or the correct, the in all caps, correct method. And I still remember, oh man, the early days on my channel, the video is still up. Back when I couldn't even break 1,000 subscribers, and I was like, oh man, people are all doing these like how I study in med school kind of videos. I'm gonna make one because I guess that's what's like catching on, and I hated every single second of it. Because I knew
Why?
like that's just how I study.
Uh-huh.
It may not work the same for the next person, so like who am I to like put this approach out, and there's going to be people think that like this is the only way to do it, and that's not true. There's 200 plus med students in each class, and every single one of them will study a different way. I think where you guys come in and do a very good job of is kind of making it process oriented, which really gets me into kind of the next step of the conversation, which is the transition from Mike and Matty to Cajun Koi Academy, where like you guys have done a complete major rebrand fairly recently. I don't know exactly how long ago it was.
Actually, like a year ago, almost today.
Oh,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
A year ago this month sometime.
It was in March last year, and we officially changed the name over. So yeah, it's been about a year.
okay. Well, to be fair, I've been in clinical, so time like doesn't.
We don't expect you to know, dude. That's why we're here to answer
Time doesn't
questions.
exist when you're in there. But like seriously, the whole Cajun Koi Academy thing is one of the most unique ideas out there on the platform, and it's something that kind of turns the concept of learning less into a set of lessons like a traditional course you'd have, but more into a series of levels similar to a video game. And that's where I kind of get the feeling that you guys are very much process oriented and leveling up, and less of like, how do I get to the destination? And that's, how learning happens, but also how learning happens for each individual person, not just like the general. So can you explain what the inspiration was for that rebrand and that switch in direction?
Yeah, this answer comes. There's a lot of reasons why we decided to make this change, and I remember actually it was New Year's last year, 2022, like the New Year. Mike and I sat down at the same table that we're at right now, and we looked at each other and we were like, we're pretty bored with our YouTube channel, and we were just like feeling kind of burnt out and like that our personal brand wasn't like actually what we wanted to do. And I think it's because growing up, like there's two things that we loved a lot when we grew up. One was video games. We played so many video games growing up
addicted.
that we were just like, yeah, straight up addicted to video games. And we just loved like that idea of like, leveling up, playing. Like Dota was like the game that we always just play forever. Like that was our game back then. And we just like noticed like when we were young, like we were so addicted to video games. And we're like, why is it that you never have to find motivation to play video games? Like we're always thinking about it. We always want to come back to it. We're playing with our friends. How can we recreate that experience for, a community, for a brand? So that was really like one big pillar of why Cajun Koi Academy is like this gamified experience, because of our love for video games and how we wanted to translate that experience to a community. And the second part of where Cajun Koi Academy came from is just our personal love for like stories, like childhood stories growing up, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, big ones like that. And that's why like the whole feel of it is also this like fictional universe that we created. And we just kind of combined those two together. Luckily, video games and stories like that kind of go hand in hand anyways. So it was like it meshed pretty well together. But yeah, that really just came from our love for just like storytelling and just like those stories. Like I guess Star Wars was a really big influence for sure.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. When we were teaching students, we discovered that one of the biggest deciding factors of success is that they take ownership. Like they take accountability, they take responsibility for their own journey. And so a lot of experimentation went on, and we landed on this idea of the brain types, which is pseudoscience, but based on various forms of psychology and neuroscience literature. But we took that and we created this like Hogwarts-esque houses. It's like 3 different brain types, 3 clubs. And if you explore our YouTube channel, you'll find it. But we explored this with the students, and they all started to resonate with like each brain type that we had. They have like one is very sensitive brain type, so they're distractible, but they learn fast. There's like the opposite end of the spectrum. They're like resistant brain type. They learn a bit slower. They retain more. And so like we characterized all the traits of these houses and made it very personable. And the students seemed to resonate a lot. And so we started gathering more literature and to really build out these 3 archetypes. And that, I think the thing that came out of it was that these students started taking their journey into their own hands and figuring out like, hey, these are my traits. This is what I'm born with. I'm either going to learn how to strengthen my strengths and, protect my weaknesses and just deal with the cards that life has given me. But overall, the main thing is that they're taking control of their learning journey. Mm-hmm. And so once we discovered that, hey, there's something is starting to click here, all the students started dividing themselves into little cliques, little groups, but they all considered themselves all part of a school of thought. And it's that brain type school of thought. And so we started thinking, hey, there's an academy here. Like we can remove ourselves from the equation. They're not following Mike and Matty anymore, which they don't need to. And from a business perspective, it's great that we can step out of this because we don't need all this pressure to rest on like our personal brand.
Right. It's in the idea.
But once we built this idea, there is this Marvel Comics, Harry Potter, Star Wars-esque idea. They can infuse their own meaning into their identity of what it means to be whatever they are, whatever group they are. And from that, they are able to improve on their own, even without us being there. And so that's how our inner circle, like our Discord server, is grown so much because they've taken that they've taken their journey into their own hands and they've done it.
Yeah, and I think, like just to continue off that too, like something that so many students, and you can tell me if this is like your experience too, but like through like high school and college, like really like one of the most important things that students are looking for is a sense of belonging. Like they're looking for their tribe, they're looking for their friends, and they're looking for some way to connect to like-minded people. And all we really created with our idea is a way for them to think about themselves. Like the word that we use in our community is self-discovery. We want everyone to find some way to discover who they are as people, their traits, their beliefs, their learning style, their what would make them happy, and just really think about what that idea is, and in that find belonging in other people. So we're offering that's pretty much what we're really offering in our community, is just a way to connect with people and share in like a shared journey through school, through learning.
Yeah. Self-improvement and learning is the vehicle. And then through that, hopefully they are able to discover who they want to be, what kind of work they want to do, what a good life looks like to them. At the end of the day, you're just trying to enjoy the process, right? So, yeah, the self-improvement is the vehicle. To talk more to your question about Cajun Koi, that was we were trying to find a name for the academy. I think the first name was like Star Academy or something. It was like, yeah, that's like way too basic and boring. And so we went back to our roots, and we're like, yeah, our stage name, Cajun Koi, from Spotify back in the day. Why don't we try that? Because when we originally came up with that, we really liked what the koi fish symbolized. The koi fish, I don't know if you know in the Japanese or Chinese folklore and religion or anything, but like the koi fish, it would swim upstream for like 100 years and reach enlightenment. I forget. I think in the Japanese culture, like you would become a dragon when you reach enlightenment or something. The fish turns into a dragon or something. But the bottom line is that this fish is very resilient, and it just continues swimming upstream against all odds. And that was our vision of what self-improvement was and what life was in general. It's just no matter what people throw at you, you just keep going. So that's why we really like the idea of the koi fish. And then it also represents creativity, which creativity is just like our outlet for everything. It is how we decompress. It is how we find joy in our life. So it started with koi, and then I don't even remember how Cajun came about, but
we were sitting on our couch. I think we were playing Smash or something.
Smash Bros,
probably Smash, and we were just like spitballing to each other, like in between fights, about like alliterations or good words that sounded good with koi.
So it sounded good together.
And then I just said Cajun, and then we're like, oh, that's actually like, it kind of sounds like it rolls off the tongue pretty good.
Oh no, because Cajun was spicy, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Like we wanted to. That's also, we also injected the spiciness into it, because in addition to like creativity, I think like what we really also promote is individuality. And so like injecting your own kind of spice into your journey to share what makes you spicy, what makes you unique to other people. So together, those two words kind of blended to create Cajun Koi Academy.
Yeah. Probably a little bit too deep for your question, but that's how our thought process. I love it. That's where the name came from. Originally as musicians.
I love hearing about that stuff, because I mean, even my own channel name, everyone's like, what is it about? Like, are you gonna keep it? You could have just done your first and last name like everybody else. Like it has like a special background meaning to it, and I know for a fact every channel name that is not first and last name has that same story. So and it fits. I think, as you were explaining kind of the quote unquote, how I'm a huge Harry Potter fan too, so I love the idea of houses. But I think kind of going back to what I was saying about how like everybody learns differently, it's helping people to take how they learn and not be isolated, not take it as a curse, but really a blessing that many other people can relate to that you just may not know about. Because I think the hardest part about learning on YouTube, again, going to some of my qualms with educational videos on the platform, is that they teach a very one-way direction on how to do things. And if you don't learn that certain way, you almost feel isolated, like, dang, okay, there must be something wrong with me. That's why I can't, study for 12 hours straight, no breaks or anything like that. So what you guys are doing is, I think, letting people acknowledge that, hey, I'm not so different than my neighbor. And in fact, we have a lot in common, and together we can kind of conquer whatever challenge we have. And that group mentality, that community is really what keeps you motivated. Times, I mean, community is a huge part of any sort of long battle, med school included.
Right. Yeah.
And even we kind of institutionalized a house system at our school where we each have, like, from first through fourth years, our own little house where we can find mentorship.
Yeah.
And kind of have a place to hang out.
We had that at our school too, I think. Because our school was pretty big.
We had that too.
Our med school class was mine was 186, and they split us up into 4 different houses, I guess, too, where you had mentors in the older years and stuff.
It's a source of early community, especially as a first year that has no idea what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, I think the whole emphasis of individuality that you've mentioned again is really why that doctrine of thinking that there's only one path to success is so flawed. Because I'm sure you can even speak from your own experiences. You've probably worked with so many different attendings now, and I'm sure none of them have the same teaching style. None of them have the same interaction style, but they all ended up at the same place. They all got their MD. And if you look in your class too, there's some kids who do really well, some kids in working in this way, and there's some people who don't. And just sticking to strict rules it's flawed, I think. The first thing we have to understand is to look into yourself. What kind of traits do you have? What kind of unfair advantages does your physiology offer you? And how can you work on those to set up systems in your life to where you can succeed? Because everyone has their own set of unfair advantages.
And honestly, I'm looking forward to checking out those 3 little houses or characters and figuring out which one I'm in. I don't know if you guys can have an insight into which one I would be just based off of this short amount of time talking.
Yeah, you let us know. I mean, if you are in medicine, then I'm just going to, statistically speaking, guess that you're a Torah, but we'll see.
Do you guys have a quiz, the Harry Potter house quiz?
We have a quiz, yep.
All right, everybody listening and watching, go take that quiz. I want to see what the majority of people are. But that's awesome. Again, I love the concept of Cajun Koi and it kind of the origins of Cajun. Before we press record, I was like, Cajun as in Louisiana Cajun.
Right. Yeah, we're not from Louisiana or anything. It's just
never been actually.
Hey, but it's spicy.
It is spicy. It's spicy for sure.
That's the best part of it. You got to have fun with it, and I know you guys definitely are, while offering I really think unparalleled value to everyone out there.
Thanks.
And kind of getting towards the end of this. Well, actually, before we start wrapping things up, who does your thumbnails for Cajun Koi? Your thumbnails are awesome.
The recent ones?
The anime ones you're talking
The
about.
artwork?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're actually in a process of making a comic and an anime for the Cajun Koi Academy. We're putting together a bunch of characters and their backgrounds. And so we brought on a number of artists who are trying to help us design this, a signature kind of anime look. It's probably going to be a very long-term project, but we're also creating avatars and a profile picture generator and a whole world map of what this universe looks like. So yeah, but yeah, to your question, it is our lead artist. His name is Joey. He's extremely talented. Today's his birthday too, actually.
That is true.
Happy birthday, Joey.
Happy birthday, Joey. I love the thumbnails.
Yeah, the thumbnails has been experimental, and so far it's been performing very well.
I'd say, haven't you guys jumped 200,000 subscribers in the past like month or something.
Something like that. No,
Yeah.
like 100K a month. Or
It's been
so.
explosive, and I think in large part due to, I don't know if you can hear the ambulance. In large part due to the branding, I think that's just really bringing it together.
100K a month, man. Literally my entire channel in a month. It's ridiculous.
It's the hockey stick growth
Yeah.
that we all know about.
Oh yeah. It's exponential growth. Mine's kind of like slowing down right here. Hopefully peaks
You'll-
back up again.
You'll get another hockey stick soon.
I hope so. We'll speak it to existence. It is definitely difficult. Obviously, being in my 4th year, like residencies on the horizon. I gotta look into a ways. Fingers crossed. Like step 2 went well and everything. With all that being said, I know you guys were building it while balancing your medical careers as well. Can you speak to any challenges that you went through?
Yeah, you can go first.
Yeah. Before I forget, because you mentioned you're thinking about a ways. If you, I think you were ortho. I forget. Is that your specialty of consideration?
Hey, let's cut that.
Okay, let's cut that. But we'll cut this entire part. Yeah. But yeah, I can hook you up with in a way if you want to talk off camera later on.
Yeah.
Anyways, what was the question again?
Um,
Oh yeah, what was
yeah,
difficult
what
about
are some of the
journey?
challenges?
Yeah. So a big challenge was just finding the time to commit to two areas of life. I am a hospitalist. I was internal medicine specialty, and so I went with that thinking strategically that I could do the typical hospitalist schedule of 7 on, 7 off. And so I was, at one point in my life, I was working nonstop. It was 7 on in the hospital, and then on my 7 off, it was seven on YouTube, basically. So, but the thing is, when I was doing the YouTube week, that week gave me so much energy. So I lost energy in the hospital. I was doing a hybrid too, so I was 7 days, 7 nights interchangeably, back and forth.
Oh man.
So, yep. And well, the nights were nice because it was not as busy. But actually, it was pretty busy. I was working. I was working during the pandemic, so it was crazy. But during the off weeks when I was doing YouTube, it just gave me so much energy. Like I think that I didn't get as much sleep as much sleep as I should have. But doing the things that you love gave me energy, and it just sustained me. So I wish I could say that you could just figure out some productivity tip or hacks or system, time, energy, attention management, but at the end of the day, it's just doing things that gives you energy is how you sustain. Those things that give you joy, things that you find fun, those things are what help you sustain and be productive, even when you have a lot on your plate. For me.
It's a good answer. I have like a similar answer, I guess, but also different because when we were growing the channel, I was still in med school. So the struggle for me was a little bit different because, as you know, in clinical rotations, when I was like really in the YouTube grind, you don't really get 7 days, like 7 on, 7 off. Like you have to be studying while working and, kind of juggling all that stuff. But what really helped me actually was it just happened to be that the content that we were teaching was how to study and how to learn more effectively. And I was pretty much my own guinea pig where I was applying everything that I was learning. And that itself was a huge unlock, like altogether, just like understanding that you can learn more in less time if you adapt it to what works for you. And that unlock for me allowed me to study a lot less than I usually would have before my first 2 years of med school, and still have time for things like YouTube and hanging out with friends and stuff. So to me, that was just like the biggest unlock of all. It's just like setting up systems so that you can accomplish everything that you need to, and make time for the things that you find enjoyable. But then also picking back off of what Mike said, like I had what you would call a quarter life crisis a little bit at 25, I think it was 25, where I just started to realize like that aside from being in med school, I wasn't spending my time how I really wanted to. And starting YouTube and starting like getting back into creating, which is something that I love so much, like, making things, like making stuff is what I've always loved to do. That just like sparked all that energizing aspect that Mike's talking about. Like, it's just so much fun for me to make stuff that I realized like I had left that behind. And in med school, like, in between exams and stuff, I would just be doing, degenerate stuff. Like, we'd go out and drink or however other people like enjoy their time between exams. But I was like, I don't need all that. And what I really wanted to do was just make stuff. So again, it was just like a revisiting of values too. Like, what is more important to you? Is it to have fun with relationships, or want to build something? And for me, it was building. So that's what I gravitated towards.
Yeah. I think it's good that you mentioned kind of the creative side giving you energy and that spark, because that's definitely what kept me going in the first like year or two doing this, especially when like nobody was really watching at first. And there was definitely a point where I really wanted to quit because I was like, yeah, I'm putting in a lot of effort and like nobody's really watching. I don't know if this is bringing as much value as I want to those coming to the channel. And I definitely remember it was somewhat pandemic inspired as well. We'll say, with as well as a lot of YouTube channels.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely remember the grind of when I committed, I'm going to upload every single week too. That, after weekly quizzes, instead of like going out, to bars or whatever,
You're editing.
I was like at home editing. Yeah.
It's the exact same situation. I was like, yep, I can't go. I got to do this thing.
It was like, obviously my class was very, very supportive. I was very open about it from the very beginning. It was a way for us to connect when we were craving that and we couldn't, and COVID class. It's funny to hear that other people still have that drive in them, like that refreshness too, because it's lonely in the Southeast. I'm going to say that, as far as being a med student, I guess, like content creator. There's not many of us out there, and even like the studio that I'm recording in right now is a huge blessing. I think digital media is something that is not as well appreciated here as in other places around the country. So, being able to do these interviews and connect with people like you, that honestly is a big part of what drives me even till today. Just to share those stories, and it's awesome. It really is.
Yeah, man. It's really awesome how, like, because I've been following your content for quite some time too, and you've actually connected with so many creators. It's like impressive. It's like actually impressive how you were able to manage squeezing that into your training.
Your
like,
73
honestly.
question stuff, man. That's work, dude.
Thank you.
Because you used to travel too, right? To people to do that, or no?
I still do. In fact, I'm going to Minneapolis like in a couple days to do another interview with a resident out there. So I think it's one of those things that the opportunities have come from this have been insane, but I think the most value is the stories you get to share, but also leave a lasting resource for students out there. Because the amount of comments I get on those 73 question videos of like, yes, this has inspired me. I watched the whole thing. This inspired me as a high school student, an undergrad, even like I'm 27 and I didn't know if I should go to med school anymore. And I saw this. I'm like, this is really getting me going. Those are the comments that are like, no matter how many views, if this gets like 100 or 100,000, like somebody out there is needing to hear this message or see it. And for those people, it's always worth taking the time and doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
But really, so to wrap this up, because again, I know you guys are super busy. as well. I appreciate your time. What does the future Cajun Koi look like? And where can people find your courses and everything?
So I think we've talked about a lot of the, I guess, aspirational anime and stories and I guess merch and shop and stuff like that. But the main thing is that our first product was going back to the idea of you start with knowledge and then you find a way to apply your knowledge. We started with a product called StudyQuest, and that is helping students start their learning journey, essentially. And we have some plans to do that for a lot of other self-improvement topics. Like the next one we're working on is Habit Quest. We're also working on Creative Quest to help bridge the gap between students and their creativity, and to help them find systems to allow them to be full-time student and creative at the same time. So those are some products we're really excited about and to build communities around. But for the long-term goal, we really want to somehow get Cajun Koi to be a more permanent brand that helps people start their self-improvement journey. That's the end of the day. Is we want everyone to. We believe that self-improvement is the way to find a fulfilling life, and usually it takes something within yourself to motivate you. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes something traumatic, like maybe a really bad breakup, losing someone in your family, getting really bad test scores, or just wanting to lose weight or something like that, like some sort of internal motivation to kind of push you onto the path of self-improvement. But once you're there, then we want to make Cajun Koi an available resource to help you on your journey. That's our ultimate goal.
Anything else to add?
No, I think he summed it up pretty well. That is really the long-term vision of what we want Cajun Koi to be, a place of inspiration and to empower people that whenever they're ready to take that next step of taking ownership, like we said, of their life, that we would hope to be a guide and a symbol for them to reach that goal.
Alrighty. And last question, what's one of your favorite videos that you would recommend to the audience to start out with?
Does it have to be our video, or are you talking about our videos?
You can go your video and then just a YouTube video in general.
Could take the brain type test. That's the video.
Yeah, that's a good one to start with.
Should we give you a link? We'll give you a link.
It'll be down below.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the show notes.
Watch the video, and by the end of the video, you'll know which club you belong to. Mm-hmm.
I'll be there right after after this. So, yeah, and thank you so much, Mike, Matty, for your time and really all the effort that you put in to build your channel and all the resources for students out there. For those watching and listening, if you haven't checked out their channel, please do. It's fantastic. Their Notion template also is amazing as well. This is not sponsored by Notion. Although, hey, Notion, if you're listening, hit me up, please. I love your program. But anyways, thank you again. And I look forward to celebrating 1 million subscribers with you guys very soon because I know it's coming.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. This has been a lot of fun. Really respect what you do, too. And we'll keep in touch for sure.
Mm-hmm.